He'll make it for sure. Now that's why I backed him on Tap Touch.
Hey, Luke.
Yes, Gene Simmons?
He's probably the best when it comes to this stuff.
Thanks, Gene.
You've got the touch. You got the touch. You got the power. Got the touch? Choose Tap Touch. Better your bet. Download the app today.
Chances are you're about to lose. For free and confidential support, call 1-800-858-858 or visit gamblinghelponline.org.au.
Hoops Heaven proudly brings to you Basketball Hustle.
Ellis fumbled the ball. 2 on the shot clock. Throws up a prayer. Yes! As he was falling to the ground, it's a 3. He shot it literally from the hip.
Definitely a highlight.
Here come the Billikens. 4 on 2. McCall. Ellis. Left corner.
We're missing out.
Bang! From way down under. Cody Ellis.
Now it's time for another episode of Hoops Heaven's Basketball Hustle.
Hello and welcome to Hoops Heaven's Basketball Hustle. And all of a sudden, Cody, we're on the home stretch of this NBL season. We've only got 3 weeks to go before the final start, and we've got a fascinating race. I think 2 separate races. There's one for second spot where you can say the Wildcats, the Kings, Melbourne United, and the Phoenix are all fighting for that second spot, and then it's almost like who's going to fall into sixth spot right now. So you've got the JackJumpers and the Bullets who are battling just a horrific injury run, and the 36ers who are the great enigmas of this season still. Their best is as good as anyone's, even if Simon Mitchell didn't agree with me last week, and their worst can be just as bad as anybody's still. So it's going to be fascinating to see how things play out over the last 3 weeks. We'll actually find out a lot over the next couple of days, and we'll talk about this. But that Wednesday night doubleheader to start things off with the Phoenix playing the Kings and then the Wildcats playing United. That's going to be extra fascinating to start things off. But lots for us to talk about on the show this week. Adam Ford, even if it's late in the season and his Cairns Taipans are out of the running, he's not letting his players off the hook, which we can talk about. Still seeing plenty of points as well across the board, Cody. Maybe not from the Tasmania JackJumpers who have gone back to type from early in the season, but lots for us to get through. So let's get straight into it. I'm Chris Pike, but joined once again this week by the former Sydney Kings and Illawarra Hawks forward, Cody Ellis. Good to have you back, Cody.
Mate, good to be back. Good to be back in Perth. And look, lots going on and lots to happen in this next couple of weeks, and it's going to be a fun little race to the top 6.
It will be. Thank you to Simon Mitchell for joining us last week and giving us his thoughts. We talk about this every year, Cody. This is a busy time for you leading into the back to school period with the work that you do, and fresh off a bit of a road trip as well.
Yes, mate. Yep, in Gero from Thursday morning till Sunday night, basically. Just running a bookshop there, and look, it's all go for the 4 days we're there, and it's a lot. So this time of year is pretty crazy for us, and look, big thank you to Simon for filling in at the last second for me.
Your season's closing in too. You're back in pre-season training now at the Warwick Senators, and it's scary how to think that. In 2 months' time, you're going to be starting that season again. Yeah,
I know. I feel like we just finished our season. Yes. And I feel like we just started the show, in round 1 and here. And look, it's pretty crazy that we're back into preseason already. But no, look, excited about it and ready to get going.
Before we get into what's going on across the NBL, I want to get your thoughts on the passing of Darryl Pearce. I talked to Simon about it last week, but. Especially from your dad's perspective, because he's right in the era of when your dad played. Your dad pretty much spent his entire career playing against Darryl Pearce, mostly when he was at the 36ers, but also his bit of time at the North Melbourne Giants. Anything stick out for you that your dad's told about the Iceman over the years? Yeah,
look, Dad, first of all, was pretty shocked when he heard the news. And
that would be around the same age, wouldn't they?
Yeah, very similar. So, kind of, I think it hit home a little hard for him, but... No, look, we had a good chat about him, and he was saying just how tough he was to guard, and he always enjoyed chasing him around the court, and he was one of the first guys that could just come off a pick and just rise up straight away and get his shot off. And I mean, we've seen from all these records that he was one of the best back then, and one of the originators of what we see today. You know, so look, obviously thoughts out to the Pearce family and all that. And look, like I said, Dad was pretty shocked at it. And He kind of had a good little time looking back and chatting about it. So it was fun to listen.
Oh, that was a perfect time for you to go on a road trip to Geraldton with him. You had plenty of time to talk in that truck.
Exactly. So no, it was good to have a listen because I always enjoy listening to Dad's stories about when he played and some of the great players that he played against, and mostly guys that he had to match up on. So he certainly had nightmares about him, but loved the challenge.
Yes, I mean he was a 3-point shooter when it wasn't a 3-point shooting era. So our condolences again to the Pearce family. Lots to talk about again, Cody, as well. Couple of things that stick out that we've seen over the past week. So Illawarra Hawks, they had a bit of a slip up again in Adelaide, but bounced back really emphatically against Melbourne and then against Brisbane. So they're pretty clear on top now. I can't see any way that they don't end up finishing in that top spot. Yep. United still in the mix, but I feel like their biggest threats are now the Wildcats, the Kings, and the Phoenix. I'm not sure there's much hope for the JackJumpers and the Bullets, just with their injury run. Firstly, I can't see them grabbing 6th spot. I think that will end up going to Adelaide, but even if they sneak in, I can't see them being competitive against one of those top 5 teams. No. And then you've got the Adelaide 36ers. I mean, at their best, they're an incredible team and they're really hard to stop, but I don't know if they can produce that on a regular basis. Out of those things, what do you want to touch on? You can touch on them all if you like.
Yeah, look, Hawks clearly, I mean, the percentage booster game that they played against Brisbane certainly helped their cause.
Well, you're right. Even just compared to the Wildcats, they've got 7 more percentage points.
Yeah.
They're 150 points ahead of them.
Yeah, so no one's catching the Hawks at the moment, so they're going to finish clear on top. Look, that next crop of teams, I think Melbourne is probably at the moment the worst of the lot.
Yep.
They just have kind of fallen off the face of the earth, which has been really strange to see, and they're just can't find anything offensively, and we'll touch more on it. But look, Phoenix are making a charge. Kings have been decent. I mean, Kouat Noi's been absolutely ridiculous, and he's wrapped up 6th man of the year.
Yep.
I mean, Cats did a really good job on the road. Didn't play many of those top teams, but you've still got to win on the road, and in this league, that's hard to do. So they'll come home feeling really good about themselves, and they're sitting in a really good position right now, and that game against Melbourne on Wednesday is going to be huge for them. And look, if both teams are playing the way they've been playing, I expect the Cats to probably roll them over a bit, which is going to be an interesting one. So,
although it's almost like a home game for Melbourne,
it is.
For whatever reason.
RAC is usually a happy hunting ground for Melbourne. So, but they're usually in a bit better form than they're in currently. So, it's going to be an interesting game. But look, lots going on. Adelaide, who knows, mate? Honestly, it really just depends. You have games where DJ hits 7 threes in the first quarter, and it doesn't happen too often. But look, they can be very good. For sure. Yeah. We've seen them be just as good as anyone. But you're right, we've also seen them be the worst team in the league by a long way as well.
Yes.
So they're all over the shop. If they can figure it out, I mean, we spoke about this a couple of weeks ago. I think it was off here. They could sneak into that 6 and just cause a bit of havoc.
Yeah.
I think if they can figure it out for a couple of games in a row, then all of a sudden it'd be worrying signs for the rest of the teams, I think. I wouldn't want to come across Adelaide.
No, you wouldn't.
Especially in a one-off game.
I
wouldn't want to. So, Tassie's just too depleted. Brisbane too depleted, I think. New Zealand too far out of it now. And, look, Cairns obviously not even close. So, look, fun little race to the end. I'm excited to see how it's going to all finish.
Yes, absolutely. Fascinated to talk more about the 36ers because not only do you not know which team's going to turn up, you don't know if they'll have a head coach by the time they turn up to a game.
Honestly.
They might not have a point guard that turns up to a game. You never know what's going to happen with that with that whole organisation. Results over the last week, Cody. Let's go back to starting on last Thursday night, and incredibly that since early November, this was the first win at Spark Arena for the New Zealand Breakers. They haven't played many games at Spark, first of all, and they haven't won many games, obviously, since the FIBA break either. But they beat the Tasmania JackJumpers 85-75. Cairns Taipans destroyed the Brisbane Bullets, who are injury ravaged, similar to the JackJumpers. The Taipans 111-80. Then the Perth Wildcats back home beat the Adelaide 36ers 110-103. Southeast Melbourne Phoenix got the job done back in Melbourne against the New Zealand Breakers 102-89. Illawarra Hawks, they dominated Melbourne United once again, 117-95. Sydney Kings, probably purely on Kouat Noi. I mean, he had 32 points and 19 of those came at the foul line. They beat the JackJumpers 88-77. And then, like you said, DJ Vasiljevic, 7 3-pointers in the first 8 minutes of the game, Cody. And they beat the Taipans 99-75. And then the most recent game, the Bullets just added to their injury woes without Casey Prather, and they were no match for the Illawarra Hawks, who won 121-87. What sticks out of all of that?
Look, I think it's all pretty much what we thought might happen. I think Perth being able to beat Adelaide was good. Adelaide were kind of on a bit of a roll.
No, you're right. Not as many upsets this week as there has been.
Not too many. I think, obviously, the Hawks dismantling Brisbane was a brutal watch. I mean, Brisbane only suiting up 9 players and only 8 of them actually being out to play is pretty crazy for a professional club, especially at this level.
And I think 3 of them are development players.
Yeah, so you had Devers starting as a DP as well, and that's, you don't see that too often. So, look, you feel for Brisbane. You feel for Brisbane. They just can't catch a break right now, and coming across a red-hot Hawks is not the team you want to play against when you don't have too many players and then you lose one in the first few minutes anyway.
Well, they lost Smith Milner was playing in the 5 spot up against Froling. Yeah.
So, look, bit brutal. Yeah, I mean, Cairns giving up 7 threes to DJ early is never a good recipe for
they kept
success.
going under the screens on him, Cody.
Oh, mate, it does my head in when I see that kind of a thing, and I'm sure it was doing 40's head in as well.
Oh, it absolutely was if anyone heard what he had to say afterwards.
Yeah, so, look, not a really crazy round in terms of scores and upsets or anything like that. Everything kind of fell into place how I thought it would. Yeah, it's kind of getting to the point of the season where those top teams are really starting to tighten the screws like we thought they would, and winning games that they need to.
Yes. Our awards, Cody, we won't get the round 17 votes until that officially finishes on Wednesday night, so those 2 big games could change things, and that's what happened last week. So when I spoke to Simon last week, we thought Matt Hurt pretty much had the 5 votes wrapped up for the first time, and he could finally face him when they get to their practice facility, and he finally got some votes. But then Bryce Cotton comes out and has another Bryce Cotton game and has the 5 votes. So he's 7 votes clear on the leaderboard from Kendrick Davis, but we've still got 4 rounds to go. How do you think it plays out? Does Bryce take out this award? Simon talked about it last week. This is very different to the MVP award, which clearly Bryce has got wrapped up, but because there's still potentially 20 votes available over the last 4 rounds. How do you think this award plays out? Yeah,
it's an interesting one, isn't it? I think it's tough to really not give it to Cotton anyway.
Well, I don't think anyone could say that he's not the best player in the league.
Well, no, 100%. 100%. And look, we've spoken about how good Davis is as well. I think he's been awesome. And Hurt has kind of flown under the radar this season. I think he's been super elite for Southeast and doesn't really get spoken about the way I think he should.
To me, he's in the all first team. He's in my all first team.
Yeah, look, I think he has to be. Yeah, don't envy anyone trying to pick those teams, by the way, because goodness me.
We're going to have to do that in the next couple of weeks. I
know. But yeah, look, I mean, the way the Cats play, Cotton's going to do his thing constantly. It's hard not to think that he'll run away with this one as well. And but I do think Davis is, in a similar boat. So it's it's a tough one. But I mean, Bryce, far and away, best player in the league, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. But after the game in Adelaide, I don't know if Bryce gets votes for that game. It was Doolittle who was dominant for Perth.
Yeah, he was great.
So Bryce might not get votes unless he does something special against Melbourne.
Yeah.
But Davis in those 2 games for Adelaide, in Cairns, he was great. And then even in Perth, he was great. There's probably more votes there for Davis, so it might be pretty close.
That is a fair call. So it's.
I don't want to influence Simon at all.
No. Yeah, look, it could come down to the last round, which is always fun because usually we've got someone wrapped up on all these by now. So
last year it was Bryce about 20 votes ahead.
Yeah, exactly. So look, it's good. That's good. Hopefully we get a bit of a close race right up until the last game.
The Damo Award's also interesting. So the round 17 votes, without putting words into Damo's mouth, Wani might be able to extend his lead because he had 2 pretty good performances. Firstly on Golding and did a pretty good job just denying Golding too many looks, and then against the Bullets he did a good job locking down Well, I didn't have many threats, but the threats they did have, he did a good job on. But going back to round 16, Dylan Windler, he had two massive games, but then unfortunately hurt his eye in this past round. And then Shea Lee, Matthew Dellavedova, Melbourne aren't doing a lot of things right, but at least they're making life pretty difficult in the backcourt still.
Oh, yeah, look, obviously start with Windler, and he's been great for the Cats. He's been awesome. And then that cut just near his eye is not ideal.
No, it looks ugly, doesn't it?
Doesn't look good. So, hopefully he can get back pretty soon because they need him.
Yeah.
I think he's been great.
He might have to wear the goggles. Do you remember when Sean Redditch had a similar eye injury and he had to wear the goggles? I don't think they lasted long in the game, but at training that week he had to wear them.
Yeah. No, it's never fun wearing something on your face. I've had to wear a mask before, like Keanu does, and I don't know how he's still doing it. I know he has to, but it's a nightmare having something on your face, especially as a shooter like Windler is. Like any little bit, that's obstructing any kind of view is tough. So,
how many games did you have to wear a mask for?
Wore it for a few. Yeah, it was more for trainings, but it didn't last in games for too many. And then look, Shea and Delhi, we know what we're going to get out of them pretty much every single game on the defensive end, so that's no surprise either. It's the offensive end that they're really struggling on, those two. But they're just elite every single game on that defensive end of the floor.
Do you see any way that Wani doesn't end up winning this award?
Nah, I think, we talk about the player of the year being down to the last game or two. Damo's wrapped up, I reckon.
Yeah.
I think Wani's probably run away with that one. Kind of that middle part of the season, he just every week was 3 votes. So I think he's wrapped that one up.
Do you think he wins the official Damien Martin Trophy as well?
I hope so, because he's been awesome this year.
Because you see almost every club or someone associated with every club is lobbying for their own players right now. There's a lot of talk around Shea. There's a lot of talk around Cooks for this award. There's a lot of talk around different players. But to me, Wani has been the standout.
Yeah, I think so. I think he's been the most consistent as well.
Yeah.
It'll be tough to take it off Shea purely because of his body of work before this season as well. And the fact that Shea probably should have won it a few times and didn't.
Yes.
So, look, I really hope Wani does win it because I think he's certainly deserving of it and he's had an unbelievable year.
Yeah. All right, Cody, before we get stuck into everything individually and we go through things team to team, let's take a deep breath. We'll hear from Tap Touch and we'll be right back.
Sounds good.
He'll make it for sure. That's why I backed him on Tap Touch.
You got the touch, you got the power. Got the touch? Choose Tap Touch. Better your bet. Download the app today.
Imagine what you could be buying instead.
All right, back on Hoop 7's Basketball Hustle. I'm here with Cody Ellis. Let's start at the bottom.
Yeah.
Bottom this week, Cody. Let's go to the Cairns Taipans. Really, really interesting because I really felt like they'd turned the corner. So after New Year's Eve, they had a really bad loss at home to the Breakers, which we talked about, but then they had 4 really good games. So they had a couple of wins on the road against the Hawks, which was a stunning upset, and then they took care of business against the Bullets. They had losses at home to Sydney and the Phoenix, but they were pretty competitive. I didn't see what happened on Sunday coming. I'm not sure Adam Ford did either because they put in a stinker against the 36ers where they, well, in his words, they played selfish and they were all out for themselves, especially his starting group outside of Tanner Groves, which he was quick to point out. Yeah, it was a really bad performance and showed that they've still got a lot of work to do. At this point in the season, though, as a playing group, are you going to respond when your coach is angry or when you've only got 5 games in 3 weeks to go? Is it going to fall on deaf ears? Yeah,
it's a tough point of the year for them. I mean, you've got to, as a professional club and professional athletes, you've still got to respond to that kind of a thing because it's not just about finishing out the season. Like, guys are still playing for contracts and all that kind of a thing. So it's not like, it's kind of just the finish once the season ends. There's lots more to play for.
Well, especially someone like Taron Armstrong. He's playing to show that he deserves an NBA chance.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, this game was just... It was very strange after, you're right, how they'd started off this year.
Yeah.
And, we spoke about it briefly before, giving up 7 threes in the first 8 minutes to DJ and just going under screens and just didn't look like they cared. They were just out there because they had to be. Yep. And, look, not ideal, and 40 doesn't matter if they're 19 and 5 or 5 and 19. Sure. He's going to treat it the same way, and he's not going to let that slide. So, look, they've still got to train every day with 40. So, if they really want to just call it quits on the season, then it's going to be a brutal 3 weeks for them.
And he said afterwards, if the starters don't want to give the effort I need, I'll play my bench players for 40 minutes, and I could see him doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it'd be good. I wouldn't be upset at him for it, and it'd be great for the young boys to get a shot because, I mean, you got all these guys on some big money, and they're not producing what they should be, and that's not right, you know.
The best example is Alex Higgins-Titcher. This was his last chance to be a development player.
Yep.
He's a guy out there that's doing everything he can to show that he cares and that he wants to keep playing, and he's a great example.
Yeah, he's been awesome. He's been great, and I'd be surprised if they didn't sign him on a contract at the end of this season.
He whether it's Cairns or somewhere else, he deserves a full contract for next year, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think so, and he should get it. So, yeah, look, there's plenty of young guys that are sitting on the end of benches that just need that chance and, you know, that opportunity to go out and play. And if the starters are going to keep producing this kind of a way, I'm sure we'll see the end of Cairns bench playing lots of minutes.
Yes, really interesting week for them now. So they play against the Hawks at home on Thursday and then in Perth on Saturday.
Yeah.
It has the potential, if they don't care enough, that it gets really, really ugly.
Yeah, well, it's an interesting one because I think that's the Hawks game for the shootout, isn't it?
I want to get to that shortly because that's your pick for the winner too.
Yeah, that was my pick. So, look, this one could go one of two ways. I think it could go 40's gotten through the playing group and they actually show up and figure it out, or, you know, they just keep going in this direction and don't show up again. And then it'll be the Hawks playing against, you know, the end of the Cairns bench and DPs. So, yeah, look, big weekend for them, and two really, really tough games.
Bigger picture, Adam Ford's out of contract. I don't know if any other coach could have got more out of what he's had to work with, but does he stay? I mean, firstly, do you feel like he wants to? And secondly, would the club offer him another deal?
Yeah, I'm not sure. It's a tough one because, I mean, we've seen throughout this season, 40 seems a bit fed up with the group and it's been a slog for him. Yeah. And yeah, look, I'm not sure if the club would offer him another contract or not, or if they want to look in a different direction and bit of a fresh voice and face in the club. So you're right, though. I don't think there's any other coaches that could have got the same out of, you know, some of these players that 40 has. I mean, you look at guys like Kouat Noi, for instance, just the difference between Adelaide and then playing under 40, and he's just a completely different player. And now he's been able to earn what he's earning with the Cats because of, you know, the body of work 40 was able to put in with him. And
I mean, he's probably making as much money as the entire Taipans
team exactly
put together.
Honestly, so it's 40's an unbelievable coach, and you know, he's one of those guys that doesn't matter who you are, he gets after you, and you know, sometimes players need that. It's kind of that era now that some players just need gentle massaging and others still need to get a rocket lit. And 40's certainly that kind of a coach and lighten the rocket. So, look, I hope he lands on his feet somewhere else in the league because it'd be weird to not have him around.
But, it would be.
I'm not sure it's going to be in the orange.
Yeah, I mean, I hope he continues coaching. Maybe overseas is in his future. Maybe he can be the latest guy to go to Japan or somewhere, but he's definitely too good of a coach to not continue coaching somewhere. But maybe having a level playing field somewhere. I mean, he's just got to battle the odds. It must get exhausting having to do it in Cairns. What about the playing group? So I guess with Armstrong, it just depends if he gets an NBA opportunity. But guys like Rob Edwards, Tanner Groves, Pedro Bradshaw, Sam Wardenberg, everybody's out of contract at the Taipans. Do you see any or all or none of those guys coming back?
Again, Armstrong you're right, it's going to be, just depends what happens, you know, in the off season. I don't think we'll see Edwards, Groves or Bradshaw back. I think they'll probably go with opportunities elsewhere. Wardenberg's an interesting one. I feel like he could attract some attention from other clubs around the league.
If I'm the Breakers, I do the same as I did with Menenga. I want to get him back to his home country and I want to build my club around those two guys.
I agree. I totally agree, and wouldn't surprise me if they did that. I think they've done a good job of trying to get it back to that direction, and especially after losing Abercrombie to retirement. I think that they're trying to find those faces to build the club around, and I mean, Meninga has been awesome
Yes.
for them, and I think Wardenberg would slot right into that with him, and you're right, they'd be the two faces of that club. So, yeah, look, it could be a very different-looking Cairns Taipans team at the start of next season.
Last thing, why can't they play at home? So even their 2 wins this year were away from home. They haven't won a home game since October the 4th.
Crazy.
The last 5, they've now lost by an average of 21 points. I know 40's not, feels like their home fans deserve better.
Yeah.
Any idea why they just can't perform at home?
Yeah, not sure. It's a really, really odd one because it's not usually how it goes.
No.
It's always the other way around.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm not sure.
Because even their big wins, the win against the Hawks was in Wollongong.
In Wollongong.
Early in the season, the big win in Melbourne was in Melbourne.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a strange one, isn't it? I think, shout out to the Cairns faithful that still come out and pack that stadium. Yep. It was always fun playing up in Cairns and always a hostile environment.
Yes.
But yeah, it's a really strange one. I'm not sure why they can't win at home. Yeah, I honestly couldn't even tell you because it's not something you see every season.
Yeah. Do you just get in your comfort zone too much at home? I mean, when you're on the road, all you're focused on is doing the things to prepare for the game and you're together as a group. Are you too comfortable at home? That's the only thing I can think of.
Yeah, I mean, must be. But when you're 5 and 19, you can't afford to be comfortable anywhere. It's it's an interesting one. It's not like I wouldn't assume lots of them have a lot going on outside of basketball.
Well, no, they're all either young guys or imports, aren't they?
Yeah, and there's not a whole lot of other stuff going on in Cairns, so it's a really strange one. But they've been shocking at home.
Brisbane Bullets. It's really interesting. So they've fallen off a cliff, and it's all been just because of the reality of not having players available. So they've lost their last 3 games by 31 points, 27 points, 19 points.
Yep.
And they've lost 6 of their last 7 games overall. But out of those games, Tyrell Harrison's now missed the last 3, Dengadell's missed the last couple, Rocco Zakarski's missed the last couple, and 6 of those 7, Emmett Nars missed the last couple, Casey Prather didn't play against the Hawks. And that's on the back of James Bateman, Jared Bairstow, and Sam McDaniel all ruled out for the season. They probably need to win their last 4 games to finish in that 6th spot. Yep. They play in New Zealand, then they play at home to Melbourne, and then they're against Adelaide and Cairns. I think they're both on the road, so their only home game to go is against Melbourne. Potentially, though, they have everyone back for Friday night in New Zealand. So Prather's a definite.
Yep.
Harrison is a likely starter as long as his head clears. Yep. A concussion's always tricky, but Dengadell should be okay. Zakarski should be okay. So do you give them any hope?
Oh, look, it's a tough one. It really is. And like I said before, you feel for them because, I mean, injuries are just brutal. Yeah. And especially when you got most of your players out and you're starting DPs and it's a frustrating point of the season. And I feel like this happens to someone every year. You know, it's one team just gets destroyed with injuries and their season kind of falls away towards the end, unfortunately. And
I'm sure Simon will point out it's usually the Phoenix.
Yes, it is. It is. I know. So, yeah, look, it'll be good to get a few of those guys back into the lineup for them, but I mean, they're not going to just hit the ground running. They're going to take a little bit to get back into it properly. Especially when you miss 2-3 games. Yep. It doesn't sound like a lot, but it is, especially playing. But yeah, look, I mean, the fact that they had to suit up Emmett just for him to be a body in case is so brutal. And look, it's, I mean, you lose 3 guys out for the season is tough, and especially being an import and your best defender in McDaniel. Yep. It's rough. It really is rough, and I'm not sure if they can really do too much damage towards the end of the season here, unfortunately, even if they're getting some guys back in.
Yep. The Adelaide 36ers, like you said at the start, they can do some damage because they're capable of anything. Before we get to their 2 games this week, though, after I spoke to Simon last week, we did start to hear about what happened after their win. Yeah. I mean, they beat the Illawarra Hawks at home, and then all of a sudden it filters out that Kendrick Davis and Mike Wells, almost came to blows. Yeah. Things got so heated between them in the locker room. What's going on? Why is this such a volatile playing and coaching group?
Yeah, it's really strange, isn't it? And I mean, from what I heard, and I don't know if it's true, that Davis was standing up for Humphreys, who Wells was going at in the locker room. Yep. And I don't know. It's so strange. And after a win, you don't ever hear of that.
But even that is interesting because Mike Wells goes out of his way every press conference to praise Isaac Humphreys. but clearly he's not doing that behind closed doors.
It's really weird. I don't know if it's, his way of getting Isaac to switch on or what, but yeah, I don't know. It's such a strange dynamic within the club at the moment. And I mean, geez, what would this be? 4 or 5 head coaches that they've fired in a season if that was to happen. Yeah. I mean, look, if they make playoffs, then you'd probably find it hard to sack him.
Yeah. But unless it comes to a point where it's either Mike Wells or Kendrick Davis, if they can't work together, I mean, in the off season, who do they choose?
Oh, you go with Davis every day of the week. Yeah. I think, I think it was Derek Rucker came out and said if someone can figure out how to keep Davis here, then he'll win multiple MVPs. And I don't disagree with him because, I mean, he's still so young, and to figure out, the league, the way he has this season has been super impressive.
Yeah. And he wins the MVP this year if it's not for Bryce,
100%. Yeah. He certainly does. And that's, again, all the more impressive. I mean, when you're going up against Bryce, I mean, it's tough for anyone to try and win an MVP, especially when Bryce is on the tear he is at the moment. So, but he could kind of be that next reinvention of Bryce coming through, Yeah. So I'm hoping that he stays in the league and around the league for a long time like Bryce has.
2 pretty good performances from them, though. I know they lost in Perth, but they played pretty well for most of that game. They still scored 103 points. They did give up, more points than they would have liked, but I feel like their effort was pretty good. You couldn't fault anything that they did. And then they go up to Cairns, really short turnaround. So they play in Perth Friday night. It probably takes you 12 hours from the time you first take off to get up to Cairns because you have to go through Brisbane first. So they do that on Saturday, and then they play Sunday afternoon. But no signs of any excuses or tiredness, and they, put up 38 points in that first quarter and win by 24. Their big names are stepping up. So across those 2 games, Kendrick Davis has 58 points, 19 assists. Isaac Humphries 19 points, 12 rebounds. Jarrell Martin's slowly but surely getting a little bit better, 18 points, 6 rebounds. Montrezl Harrell 36 points, 24 rebounds, and then obviously DJ with that 32 points in Cairns and 55 points over the 2 games. There might be a lot of stuff going on in the locker room, but on the floor, the playing group actually looks like they enjoy playing together.
They really do, and it does look like a fun group to play with. And, I still think they're yet to get anywhere near the best out of Martin, like you said. And if he can turn that corner a little bit towards playoffs, and if they sneak into the 6, then again, that's just an extra body that is going to be dangerous. And Isaac just needs to find a bit of consistency, I think. And obviously that's not always his doing because some games he just doesn't touch the ball. And I mean, when you got Davis doing what he does, I think that's not too, I mean, you've got to live with that. So Montrez is just going to do Montrez things. He'll get a couple big dunks and some energy plays and get the crowd into it, whether it's home or away. And then DJ has been, 32 in Kansas on that 10 threes and calling out Bryce and CG, which was funny. I mean, if he's shooting like that, then they're tough to beat. They really are. They just got to figure it out on the defensive end because they don't really care too much on that end of the floor, do they?
No. It's funny with DJ because I remember straight after Golding had his 46 points against Perth and he had the 21 3-point attempts. After Adelaide's next game, I asked DJ afterwards, what goes through your mind when you see someone like Golding have a night like that? And he's like, gee, I just wish I could take 21 threes myself. And he made the comment at the time that I'm probably never going to get that chance, but he did jack up 21 in this game.
Yep. Yeah, he did. So, I mean, when you make 7 in the first quarter, you're feeling it. And, I mean, I don't care if you're a shooter or not, you're going to be getting them up when you make that many early in the game. So
he was pretty desperate to get that 11th in the last couple of minutes, wasn't he?
I know. Tried real hard, but super impressive effort. And, I mean, making 10 threes in a game is just crazy.
What's the most you've made in a game?
I
feel like you would have got to double figures.
Yeah, I think I have made 10 once. Made 8 and 9 a few times. I went 8 of 8 in one game, which is silly because there's no way you should go 8 of 8.
You should be taking 15 attempts.
Hell of a lot more. But yeah, I've made 10 a couple times actually. I think. Yep. But yeah, it's always fun when you're feeling it like that.
Yes. Tasmania JackJumpers, very similar boat to the Brisbane Bullets now because we talked about how Will Magnay was almost the player that they could least afford to lose, but in his absence, Majuk Deng had been stepping up great.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden both are done for the rest of the season. And Sean McDonald, they they won 8 straight games as soon as he came back into the lineup.
Yeah.
So that says it all about the impact that he has. But what he does is he takes the pressure off Milton Doyle and Jordan Crawford. Because he plays as the point guard, and they don't have to carry the ball. All of a sudden, it's either Milton or it's either Jordan that are now got the ball in their hands all the time. They have to be the playmaker, and they have to be their best scorers. So it's tough. I mean, just look at the numbers with that trio: 36 points a game, 15 rebounds, 7 assists a game, and it's not like they have the sort of depth that they can just make up for that naturally. So they've now lost 5 of the last 6 games. They've only got 4 games to go. They probably only need to win 2 of them to make this top 6 because they've got. I mean, they could that overtime win against Adelaide could still end up being important, but I don't know if they're going to be able to find a way to win 2 games, are they?
Yeah, it's going to be tough for them. They've just got to hope Adelaide fall over in a heap and don't win any as well. But, I mean, look, you look at those stats of those 3, and, I mean, Majuk Deng's been awesome for them. You know, it really sucks. And we spoke about Sean McDonald and the impact he would have when he did come back, and surprise, surprise, it actually it actually happened. And, look, there's a lot riding on Doyle and Crawford at the moment, unfortunately, and I find it hard to see them making the 6. Unfortunately, again, just too depleted, and it's frustrating. It is frustrating. This will be their first year of not making playoffs.
Yeah, it would be.
So, but hey, we counted them out every other year, and they've been in. So few real tough games, unfortunately for them. Could come down to the Cairns game. Who knows?
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, I just feel like even if they're competing, those 3 guys, they just can't replace.
No.
Yeah, I mean, I know Scott Roth's playing it down that all of them are out for the next 8 weeks, but I do feel like there's a chance Majuk and will potentially get back for that Cairns game that you talked about, their very last game. So we'll wait and see. And it might just depend if they are playing for their lives or not. If they need to win that game to make it, maybe they do.
Maybe.
Risk those guys in that game.
Yeah.
South East Melbourne Phoenix, I mean, losing Derek Walton Jr. had the potential to derail the momentum that they had, but it hasn't happened. So they've continued playing really well, had a good win on their return to Melbourne. Yeah, so they beat New Zealand in that game. Pretty competitive game, but they got the job done. Nathan Sobey was brilliant, but it's almost a committee effort to replace Derek Walton. Angus Glover's starting, but then Owen Foxwell's coming in to help out, and Ben Ayres also helping out. They're looking really good, aren't they?
They are. They're very fun to watch.
They are.
They do play both ends of the floor, and it's fun watching King run up and down the sideline and be in a defensive stance pretty much all game.
Yes.
So, but no, look, you're not going to replace Walton by just one player.
Yep.
And I think the fact that they're the 3 guys that you mentioned in Angus, Foxwell, and Ben Ayres, I think the fact that they've all stepped up and are playing their roles has been awesome, but also not surprising. We've seen all 3 of those guys be huge for the club in the past, and Ben Ayres, someone who could have very easily packed it up and not cared too much earlier in the season because he wasn't getting any tick, and especially when King took over, he wasn't really playing much early, and had a bunch of DMPs, and I think the fact that he's stayed ready, and again, not surprising. I don't think he's that kind of a guy at all. So Foxwell's been great. Glover's been great. I think the 3 of them have been awesome when what went down. And you speak about Sobes. I think ever since King's come in, he's just turned a corner and really found his groove, and kind of was forcing it early in the season and just trying to will his way into getting into a bit of a rhythm, and it wasn't working for him. And now that they're out and running, I mean, that was always going to be how Sobes was going to get into it. And I mean, he looks very, very good now.
Yeah, he's playing efficient, isn't he? I always feel like he's been a little bit harshly judged because in the last few years at Brisbane, like he's put a lot on his shoulders, and
had to.
Yeah, he's had to. So I feel like it's always come from a good place in his heart where he's trying to help. He feels like he has to do that to help his team win. So I don't think he's ever meant it to come from a bad place. And he was trying to do that early this season with the Phoenix as well, just because, when you're 0-5, you feel like you want to be the guy that turns it around for you, especially when you are the captain. But he's just playing under a lot better control now. He's not taking many bad shots, but he's also playing good defense. He's playing well, setting up other teammates as well. And then his scoring is sort of coming naturally. Yeah. I mean, 28 points, 9 assists in this game against New Zealand, but they're plus 24 with him on the court. Yeah, I feel like maybe maybe it's just a better team around him. I'm not sure what it is, but Simon mentioned it last week. This is more the Sobey version that we saw in that Adelaide team that made the grand final, more so than the Brisbane version of Sobey.
Well, exactly. And with Brizzy, you're right. He had to force it.
Yep.
He had to force it because he was their go-to guy. Yeah. With Adelaide in that grand final run they had, he had other guys around him. And that's where he thrives because you don't have that focal point on just him.
Yeah.
You've got to worry about everyone else as well. And, Sobey is one of the best players in the league. And he's proven that time and time again. And, the fact that he's starting to really, hit his stride at this time of year is probably very exciting for Phoenix fans. And I'm sure Simon's very excited about it too.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, before we take our last break, let's stick to the Melbourne teams and go to Melbourne United because you can say pretty much everything the opposite to what we just said about the Phoenix because they've now lost 7 of their last 10 games. And it's strange that it's all happened since they've got back to being full strength as well. So they haven't quite figured things out since they've had all their players available. A big loss in Wollongong on Saturday night where they not only ended up losing second spot, they've fallen all the way down to fourth now as well. And, it's going to be tough for them to get back to second, but they're in a real fight to even stay as one of the top 4 teams as well. I'll get to Ian Clark because I think he's the best illustration of their offensive struggles. But overall, what's happened to Melbourne over the past probably 4 to 6 weeks?
Yeah, it's been a rough fall for them because they were set up really nicely early in the season, and it's been really odd watching them play. It's defensively they're still okay. I mean you've got Delhi and Illy. They're not giving up 110 every night. They're still holding teams to decent scores and into winnable games, but offensively they're just so stagnant. They don't look like they're running anything. Nothing they're running really seems to be working for them. They're not really getting any easy looks. Goulding's still doing his thing, and
he's almost the only offensive threat that they have, though, isn't he?
Yeah, he is, and it's tough to play Shea and Delhi at the same time because that's 2 guards that aren't real scorers. And but I don't know.
And if you're the opposition, you want those guys shooting.
You do.
Isn't great to have 2 guys like that.
Delhi's going to have his nights where he hits a few threes.
Yeah.
But I think in the long run, that's not going to be successful for you.
No.
Rob still doing his thing.
Yep.
He's been fairly consistent. Lee's been good for them. Jack White's been decent for them, but it's still a bit up and down. And there's no real scoring punch outside of Goulding at the moment, and it's tough. It's been a tough watch. With how much they're struggling on the offensive end of the floor. Yeah,
my only query on them, even at the start of the season, was do they have enough firepower? So they didn't really add firepower to the group, and they lost firepower when you take out Joe Luala-Chul especially, and I think it's they don't have a weapon to go to outside of Goulding, and Goulding's not really the guy that you want to throw the ball to and tell him to go to work either. He's more of a catch and shoot play when he's at his absolute best. But Ian Clark probably has to be that guy now that they can't bring anyone else from the inside. But he's really struggling right now to give them anything. So even last season when they made the run to the championship series, he was pretty good. 42% 3-point shooting. And then the first 18 games of this season, he was really good for them. 14.5 points and shooting at 40% from 3.
Yep.
But he's fallen off a cliff the last 6 games. 5.5 points in that stretch. He's only shooting at 27% from the field and 17% from 3. I think he's gone 3 of 18.
Yeah.
We know he's a quality player, but can he turn this around? Because I don't know if they go anywhere unless he does.
Yeah, no, look, he's not getting easy shots.
Yep.
And I think a lot of that comes down to, their offense being so stagnant. Look, you're right. Our little asterisks on them at the start of the season was, would they be able to score in the same way they have been in the past couple of years? Yep. And we thought, no, not at all. But they proved us wrong early in the season, and they were rolling, and they were kind of that team that we were like, oh, well, they're just going to be just as good as always and figure it out. And now that, again, teams are starting to figure other teams out, and you've played everyone 3, maybe 4 times, it gets to that point of the year where the defensive screws tighten. There's not a whole lot of new things you can throw at other teams. So you've got to be really disciplined and good in what you're running, and they're not been that at all, which is something that we don't see with Melbourne or a Dean Vickerman coach team often at all. So, look, I think, he's got to figure it out. If they want to make a good run, he has to figure it out. But they've got to find ways to get him better looks, because a lot of the looks he's getting right now are not quite in transition. They're kind of should be starting a half-court set, but they're not. And he comes off, he's got a little bit of daylight, and he gets a forced up three, and that's kind of the looks he's getting right now. And that's not how he's going to find his rhythm again. He needs to be getting to the rack or coming off good pin downs or turnouts and getting to the foul line, get his stroke back. And it's
that's the other thing. I think over those 6 games, he's taken 2 free throws in total.
And look, he's not someone that goes to the free throw line very often anyway.
No, but I think from memory, it was 33 free throws in the first 18 games.
Yep.
So that's almost 2 a game.
Yeah.
But now he's had 2 in 6 games in total.
That's not good enough.
Yeah.
And for a world-class shooter like Ian Clark, all he needs is a couple.
Yeah.
So I think that if they can find ways to get him easy looks early, all of a sudden he'll be up and about and feeling good about himself. And then you've got, your two-headed monster in him and Goulding that you've got to worry about. And again, that's only going to free up guys like Jack White and the 2 bigs in Rob. Even, I think that even the point guards in Delhi and Shea, that'll help them out as well. Their driving lanes will all of a sudden open up for them. Yeah. Flynn Cameron's another one that I thought would. Well, he looked like he was turning a corner, and he was going to be that extra scoring punch for them through that mid part of the season. And similar thing, he's just kind of fallen away, unfortunately. And it's certainly struggles for Melbourne at the moment.
All right, Cody, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll start looking ahead to this round ahead, but also the run home of those 8 teams all in contention, and I'll get you to make some selections for us.
Yep, easy.
Can you picture the first goal before the ball has even bounced? Can you read the footy future in the mullet of a full forward? You've got the touch. Got the touch? Download the Tab Touch app today.
You win some, you lose more.
Welcome back to Hoop 7's Basketball Hustle. I'm here with Cody Ellis, and these hours fly by quickly when there's so much to talk about, Cody. Summer Shootout. It's fair to say we're probably not the biggest fans of it, and I don't think Simon was either last week when we talked about it, and it's a nice gimmick, but at the same time, I'm still convinced that unless you're the Taipans and you've got nothing else to play for, and you do get to 100+ points in the last couple of minutes, then you might think about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But outside of that, none of these teams are thinking about it. But currently, the Taipans are leading with 111 points that they scored against the Bullets. Yep. So they're in the box seat. But your selection looks very tasty right now. If anyone did take your advice, I think you'd be feeling pretty good. So you put up the Hawks to score 124 points against the Taipans this Thursday night. I think that's going to go very close because the Hawks are playing great, the Taipans are not. And like we said, the Taipans aren't playing great at home. Yeah. And the Hawks have that added motivation of knowing that they lost a game they shouldn't have lost to the Taipans last time. I can see them going very close to that 124.
Yeah, look, I think that it could be. It's looming ominously, isn't it?
Yes.
It's a recipe for it to happen.
Yeah.
In saying that, I think that, Cairns are due for a win at home.
Yes.
So,
and if they're playing for money, do they lock in defensively a
honestly,
bit more?
Yeah, honestly, possibly. Who knows? Maybe that's what their incentives are.
Maybe.
But yeah, look, if it's honestly, if anyone's going to win it, I do hope it is Cairns, just so they can get something out of the season.
Yes.
But yeah, look, this could be an ugly game. It could be, and I think if the Hawks figure it out early, I mean, look, again, like we've spoken about multiple times, and I'm sure Simon felt the same way. If they're up big early, the Trey Kells and your Tyler Harveys and stuff aren't going to play much in the second half. Yep. They're going to let their young boys play, which rightfully so. Yeah. So not overly sure if they're going to be able to get to the 124, and that was always a fairly big number for me to throw out there. But to be fair, we did throw that out there when there was some big scores happening. So
well, and in fairness, the Hawks are just coming off scoring 121.
Yeah. So I don't know. We'll see. But I'll be. If anyone took my advice and ends up winning the money, I expect a small cut.
Oh, it would be rude not to. Okay, before we get to our preview of round 18, Cody, I want to go through the run home of the teams all in contention. So as I said, we've pretty much got a few teams fighting for second spot and then the 3 teams fighting for sixth spot. The Hawks are in top spot. They're 17-8. They've got 4 games to go. They're away to Cairns, away to Tasmania, away to New Zealand, and then at home to Sydney. Is there any way they don't wrap up top spot? They probably only need one of those 4.
Yeah, look, I don't think so. I really don't see them losing any of those games. I feel...
Yeah, I mean, the Sydney one in the last round is probably the tricky one.
Yeah, it would be, but they've got the wood over Sydney at the moment.
They've won all 3 so far, yeah.
Yeah, and look, if you're a Sydney player or a fan, you're gonna do everything you can not to get swept. So that could be a tough one for them. And again, it's a weird one for the Kings. They could be fighting for that second spot as well. But yeah, look, I don't see why the Hawks can't win out, really.
Yep.
So but they've wrapped up top spot, I reckon.
Yep. The Wildcats are now second. They're 15-9, and they've got home games to go against Melbourne, Cairns, Southeast Melbourne, and Adelaide, and an away game against Sydney. Do you see them staying second?
It's a tough run home.
Yep.
It is a tough run home. I mean, getting Melbourne at a good time of year. Cairns.
Well, Cairns is the only given out of that. You're right. The other 4 are all probably 50-50 games.
Southeast is a tough one. Yep. Sydney on the road's a tough one. Adelaide at home's a tough one.
Yep.
I mean, their advantage is they've got a good run and they're all home.
Yep.
So, I mean, to have only one road game in your last 5 is huge for them. So, like I said, they did a really good job to get out of that little road stint the way they did.
Yeah.
And set themselves up really nicely to finish in that top 2. And look, I think they do finish second. I think they'll stay there.
You saw in person them playing in Wollongong just before Christmas.
Yeah.
How surprised are you that after seeing them that night, they haven't lost since?
Yeah, look, they were. Yeah, that was pretty bad. But sometimes you need those kinds of games. It's just a bit of a wake up call for you. And I mean, it was certainly that because they've turned the corner. So. Yeah, look, they've been awesome. They've been playing really good ball, and while they didn't play too many of those top teams, like I said, on the road, you've still got to play who you're playing, and winning on the road's tough in this league. So, yeah, coming home and winning against some of these top teams is going to be tough, but I do think they're playing some really good ball right now.
Sydney Kings, so they're now 15-10. They finish away to the Phoenix and away to the Hawks, and then home to Adelaide and Perth. Where do they end up finishing?
Yeah, look, let's talk about tough runs home. Southeast playing some really good basketball. Adelaide, who knows which team you'll play against.
Yep.
Perth at home is a big one for them, especially when they're trying to catch them.
Yep.
And then the Hawks on the road, like I said, they're not going to want to get swept by the Hawks. I don't know when the last time, if that's ever happened. Yeah. So that'll be a big one for them as well. I reckon they stay around that 3-4 spot. They've been decent. I think playing in the fourth quarters the way they have been and being able to just pull themselves out of these giant holes for that little stretch that they did was super impressive and really kept them in good stead on the ladder. But I reckon they hover around this 3-4 spot.
What about Melbourne United? Do they stay in that 3 or 4 spot too, or do they slip to 5th? So they're 15-10, and then they got away games to the Wildcats and the Bullets, and then finally back at home to the JackJumpers, and then they're at home to the Phoenix, but it's a neutral game. So where do they end up?
You'd think Brisbane's the only real game that is a gimme for them.
Yep.
But the way they're playing, Perth, Tassie, and Southeast is going to be tough. Yeah. I think that I reckon they probably drop to that 5 or 6 spot.
Yep.
Unfortunately, just purely off the way they've been playing.
Yep.
Unless they've had a really good week on the training court and have figured some stuff out.
Yeah.
I reckon they drop to that 5 or 6 spot.
I imagine the Phoenix are the ones that probably jump into the top 4 on the back of that. So they've got 5 games to go. They've got home games against the Kings and the JackJumpers this week, and then they've got away to Perth, then back home to Adelaide, and then they stay in Melbourne to play United.
Yeah, look, I really think that they jump up to 3rd. I think, obviously, that's still a tough run. I mean, Sydney, Tassie's always a tough one. It's never a gimme, even as depleted they are. Perth on the road's always tough. Adelaide, again, just depends on which Adelaide show up. And then finishing, at home in a road game.
Yep.
But, look, I do think they're one of the hot teams right now, and I reckon they jump up all the way up to third.
Yeah, well, yeah. I think we're ruling out the Bullets, aren't we?
Yes.
So I think 6 comes down to the JackJumpers and the 36ers. So right now, Tasmania's 12 and 13, Adelaide's 11 and 13. So Tasmania finishes away to the Phoenix, home to the Hawks, away to Melbourne, and then at home to Cairns. Adelaide finishes away to Sydney, then at home to New Zealand, at home to Brisbane, away to the Phoenix, away to the Wildcats. So the 36ers need to win one more game in that stretch. Well, they probably need to win 2 more games than the JackJumpers. So how does 6th spot play out?
That's a tough one. I feel like Adelaide's got a tougher run home.
Yes.
Extra game, 3 on the road. That's a tough one. And, New Zealand, while they're out of contention, has actually been playing really well. They're playing really well. I mean, Southeast on the road, Sydney on the road, Perth on the road. Their 3 toughest games are all on the road on that one. So it's going to be a tough run home for them. I think they sneak in. But yeah, look, Tassie really only has to win, like you said, probably 2 of those.
Yep.
And which 2 do they win though?
Yeah. But I mean, potentially they make it with only 1, don't they?
Yeah. It's going to come down to whoever can just sneak a win, because I think that because Tassie, you'd expect them to beat Cairns, and probably Melbourne would be the other one that I'd expect them to win.
Well, they play really well in Melbourne against Melbourne.
They always play well against Melbourne. And then I'm not sure. I'll say Sixers jump in. I'll say the Sixers jump in.
All right, so based on all of that, you think we end up with the Hawks, the Wildcats, Phoenix. Kings, United, and
Sixers.
then the 36ers.
Yep.
Gee, if that plays out, we've got a play-in game to start things off. It'll be Melbourne against Adelaide.
I know.
That could not possibly work out better for the league's marketing department.
Exactly.
All right, Cody, let's get to round 18. It starts, it officially doesn't start until Thursday, but we'll preview Wednesday night here to finish round 17 thanks to TabTouch. So check out all the odds at the TabTouch app or at tabtouch.com.au. This is a massive Wednesday night doubleheader.
Massive.
Let me get your thoughts. It starts with the Phoenix against the Kings and then the Wildcats against United. These are going to be big determining factors in where all these 4 teams finish up.
Yeah, look, I'll probably go with the 2 home teams in this one. I think Southeast will just get it on over the Kings. But that's going to be a fun game to watch. 2 very talented rosters going at it, which is great. And then
and the Phoenix have blown 2 games against Sydney already, where they've been in winning positions.
Yes, yeah. So they've been the better team for most of those 2 games. So I mean, they're the ones that the Kings dug themselves out of giant holes in the 4th. So I don't expect that to happen again. I think Southeast get on top early and keep that margin going rather than losing a big lead again. But those are some games that they'll look back on and kick themselves if if they don't make that kind of top couple.
Yeah.
And then the Cats against Melbourne. I think the Cats coming home, starting to feel comfortable back at home again after that long road slog and over a Melbourne team that, while usually is a happy hunting ground here for them, haven't really found their stride yet. So
they've won 9 of the last 10 against Perth in Perth. I mean, surely that can't keep going forever.
No, I don't think so. I reckon the Cats kind of get one of those back here on Wednesday.
Thursday night in Cairns, as we talked about earlier, shootout game for the Hawks. How much do the Hawks win by, and how many points do they score?
Yeah, look, I'll stick with my 124.
Yeah.
But look, I think the Hawks do get into the business end of the year. They can't afford to lose games that they shouldn't. Even though we think they've pretty much solidified that top spot, I think that they'll really ramp it up and they'll get a fairly easy win up in Cairns. 2
more games on Friday night. Firstly, the Breakers back at home. And like you said, playing better even if they are out of contention. The Bullets need to win this. If they don't win this, their season's over. And then, this is a big one. The Kings against the 36ers. Last time in Sydney, that's when Adelaide started to turn things around and they beat the Kings.
Yeah, they did. It's look, New Zealand, I think, get it over Brisbane. I think they're playing some really good basketball at the moment. And Brizzy, even if they do get a few of their players back. I mean, the travel is always brutal.
Yep.
So I think New Zealand get that one. And then, Kings into Adelaide is a tough one.
Yeah.
I think that, I wouldn't expect the Kings to let Adelaide come out and do the same thing that they did last time they were there.
No.
I'm probably banking on a bit of a closer game for this one. Yeah, look, let's go with Adelaide on that one.
Yeah,
We'll go with Adelaide in Sydney.
Saturday, 2 more games. Potential blowouts, at least on paper. So the Phoenix, they're at home to the JackJumpers, who will still be without Deng, Magnay and McDonald. And then you got the Wildcats against the Taipans, who play at home on Thursday night and then have to play in Perth on Saturday.
Yeah, look, tough one. Real tough one for both Tassie and Cairns, unfortunately. I think Phoenix get that one fairly handily over Tassie, who, again, just way too short-handed at the moment.
Yep.
And then the Cats will round off their little weekend with a fairly emphatic win over the Taipans, I think, as well. Again, two teams that are really hunting for those final spots, but playing against teams that, have nothing else to play for is always dangerous as well, because they just go out and play free. So, but I do think, Phoenix over Tassie and then the Cats over Cairns.
It couldn't be a worse doubleheader for the Taipans. So
No, it's tough.
what's their combined margin in those 2 games that they lose by?
Oh, yeah, I'm not sure.
Is it 50 plus?
It could very well be against 2 very potent offensive teams.
Yeah.
So, it's a tough round for them, unfortunately.
Yes. Okay, we finish up on Sunday. Brisbane Bullets back at home. So they play in New Zealand on Friday night and then the first game on Sunday. So that's a very short turnaround. It's also their last home game of the season. And it's a must-win game for them against Melbourne United. And then you've got the 36ers. They're still in a must-win situation as well against the Breakers. How do you see those playing out?
Yeah, look, two interesting games. I think that if Melbourne can't figure it out against the depleted Bullets, then they've got other issues. But I reckon they get that win. And then, Adelaide at home against New Zealand is a tough one. It's a tough double for Adelaide. I think, like we said, New Zealand's playing some decent basketball. So I do reckon Adelaide get that one and start off their weekend or their run home in fairly emphatic fashion.
All right, Cody, that hour's gone by quickly, so we'll leave it there. But, we're going to learn a lot over those 5 days, aren't we? When we come back next week, we'll have a much clearer picture of how everything's shaping up. Yep. So thank you for everyone for tuning in once again. Make sure you head to TabTouch to check out all these betting options as well leading into this weekend. I'm Chris Pike, and I'll leave it there and leave you in the trusty hands of Cody to finish off.
Yeah, look, excited for this run home. Lots of teams and lots of movement to happen, and excited to kick it off on Wednesday night.
Can you picture the first goal before the ball's even bounced? You might have the touch. When the weather's wet, can you feel who'll triumph? You've got the power. Can you read the footy future in the mullet of a full forward? Then you too might be harnessing the power of the touch. Got the touch? Download the TabTouch app today.
You win some, you lose more. For free and confidential support, call 1-800-858-858 or visit gamblinghelponline.org.au.